Good morning, everyone. It is
Morning.
April 19th, and we're here with Gardening Tips Live. I'm Amy Hahn, and I'm joined by my friends and fellow master gardeners, um,
And student.
Lee Cheek. You're a master gardener student, so you qualify and will soon be an intern. Here with Gardening Tips. Back there, I'm getting it so that I can see what's going on and actually get this where other people can see it. Okay, no, I don't want to open the image. Um, but, oh, and Margot Emery, Lee Cheek and Margot Emery.
Is
Uh,
Brian going to join us?
I do not know if Brian's going to join us. This is the first week that he's at Dixie Lee Farmers Market. Um,
Exciting.
yeah, in their outdoor market. So that's a little bit different than the winter market, and it starts earlier. So the outdoor market, I think actually starts at 9. So I'm sharing this in the group and I'm saying, please click into the video to comment and see resources we post. Um, because we do not see what you're doing if you don't click into the video. It has to do with the way Facebook is doing things. Also, if you're trying to find previous shows, you do have to now go to our YouTube channel, Knox County Master Gardeners, and there's a playlist for this year, and that's probably the easiest place to find what we're doing. Let me find our video and get it pinned to the top. It should be one of the newest posts, and it is pinned to featured. And I'm going to put it at the top of featured so folks will be able to see it for a while. Into top. There we go. We are here. And several folks have asked us to do this at everyone. So members of the group will get notifications. Please remember to click into the video for your comments and we'll actually see them. And so it is a beautiful morning and we're going to talk about gardening. I guess
Yay,
that's what we usually
it's
talk about,
spring.
isn't it? It is spring. It is officially spring. I went out this morning without a jacket and was not freezing. Um, I have mixed feelings about that this time of April because I'm going to show you one of the reasons that I have mixed feelings. I'm going to go ahead and start the slideshow if I can hit the right buttons. Irises are one of the reasons I don't love it to be this hot this time of year. When it is this warm, the iris blossoms don't last very long.
Yeah.
No.
And
Those are
so,
beautiful, Amy.
yeah, it's a beautiful variety. Years ago, UT Gardens used to have an event called Bloomsday every summer. And one year it rained the whole weekend. It was a 2-day event. And they had the Iris Society was there and the Daylily Society. Well, I think it was the Daylily Society. And sort of at the end of the weekend, and I was there toward the end, they were like selling things so many dollars for just a whole bag, as much as you could stuff in it. And so I ended up with a lot of really nice irises and daylilies that year because, people weren't coming because the weather was so bad. And so that's not normal, but it happens. Okay. Keep in mind, irises are nice. Um, they bloom for a couple days. What happens is each flower basically is opened for a day,
Mhm.
and then they sort of fold up. But it'll be a bract of several flowers. I don't know if you can see this one in the background. Let's see, right here is really good. So it's got a flower that's about ready to open, and it's got a couple more flowers that'll open later. So if you cut them and bring them in, you will have a couple days of flowers,
Yeah. And
but
then
they are not long-lived
you had a
flowers.
nice dead one there also that
Yeah.
showed them, yeah. When
Yep,
the
there's a nice dead one over here.
Yep.
Yep, and that's just part of irises.
Mhm.
This is another plant that's actually can be sort of invasive. It's called Siberian squill.
Mhm.
Got it from my mother-in-law in the days when I knew nothing about invasive plants. Oh, hi, Mary. It's great to see you. We might talk a little bit about where we all were last weekend before things are over. Um, but it is a beautiful, I mean, I love the flowers. The problem with it is the clump expands in the ground and it sets seed. And it can form a patch that will crowd out other things.
And the leaves are really wet.
Hmm.
And if you've got something else growing underneath that, some perennial, it sort of smothers it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you were telling me how you manage yours to keep it from causing a problem.
Yeah, I've got a huge patch at a church garden, and what I do is after they're through blooming, is I cut the whole plant back to, just about an inch. And then that prevents the seeds, and then it allows the perennials that are underneath to breathe.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it
So
still blooms the next year.
And it still blooms next year.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
and
But
you
it
cut the
does.
foliage back too, Lee, or just the
Yes. Uh-huh.
blooms first?
I do the whole thing. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I might have to do it because it looks like this one's getting into an iris patch because those look like iris leaves
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
there. Yeah, I'll have to do that this year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is a plant that I've never had be invasive. This is chives. Now these ones, this is a pot on my deck. It is a very large pot. Um, it's actually a feed bucket from Tractor Supply that I've cut drainage holes into. Um, and it is, gosh, we've lived here. It is probably close to 15 years old. The container, and it's in great shape. But this other one, garlic chives, you um, is a wonderful herb, and you can cook with it. But when it puts out those flowers, it's really good to take the flowers off before they make seed because their seed will end up everywhere and you will have little baby garlic chive plants
Everywhere. Yes.
everywhere. I almost wish that would happen with regular chives, but it doesn't seem to
Yes.
happen.
Yep.
And then behind it is just a really nice sage plant in
And
there.
one of the things I do with my garlic chives when it blooms
Mhm.
is I cut the blooms off and take them inside and put them in flower
Yes.
arrangements. And then that way you don't have seeds.
Yes. Yeah, they're really nice. And if you catch them as really small buds, you can actually chop them up and stir fry them.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
But,
Mhm.
and you can, in a lot of Asian cooking, they will put a container over the chives. Hi, Judy. I'm glad you've joined us. Um,
Oh,
they'll
I
put a
got Brian.
container over the garlic chives when they're coming up. And so that makes the leaves a lot more tender. And so they'll use large quantities of them in cooking. So the blanched garlic chive greens. And so let's see next. Oh, these are the peas that I planted a while ago. I really planted them too late for peas. And with our temperatures getting into the 80s, even though the plants seem to be growing nicely, I really don't have high hopes of actually getting any peas
Yeah.
off of it. If we were having a cooler spring, I would have more hope of that. These containers do not, these are quart yogurt containers that I've cut the bottoms off of. So they're just to prevent the rabbits from seeing the seedlings coming up. Once it gets to a height where it can grab onto the trellis I have here, I usually take the containers off if I get it before they grab on. If they grab on, I'll just leave these on there. They don't prevent the moisture from getting to the plant from around it because they are just into the ground, just, enough to keep them from blowing away. That's how much I put them in. Oh, Brian's at Dixie Lee Farmers Market, and you all can't see him because I'm sharing my screen. So I'm going to stop sharing, and we're going to say hi to Brian.
Hi, Brian.
Brian.
Howdy.
Yeah, Brian is at a table at Dixie Lee Farmers Market, which is having their first outdoor market of the year.
Yep.
Yeah. So are there a good number of vendors there this year?
Oh, yes, it's full. Many of the vendors who are at the indoor market are out here.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, but we got produce, we've got meat vendors,
Oh,
as well as crafts and herbs and other things.
is there coffee?
Yes, right behind
Yes.
me.
Oh, awesome, because I'm out of coffee. And so I'm
Yes,
actually drinking
and
tea this morning.
and immediately behind me is Swede crepes.
Okay, so there's a lot of options. So you can go there and
Yeah,
get breakfast.
right. Yes.
Yeah. No, I ran out of coffee, so I think I might go over. Um, Dixie Lee happens to be the farmer's market that's closest to my house.
Um,
And I quite often go over there after our show's over. So
yep.
I will probably go over today and see what vegetables I need. Probably
Yep.
not much because I was actually at Ebenezer Farmers Market on Tuesday. Um, but I do need coffee, and I know the guy who roasts the coffee that's there.
I hear the subtle uh, grumbling, growling with anticipation.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, he actually usually does some interesting coffees.
yes,
So
he does.
yeah. And so that'll be nice. Get stocked up for the next couple weeks.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. So these
Yes.
are my peas that might not make anything. Um, this is, I know many of you do strawberries. So these are called alpine strawberries. What is it? I had an incident where I had the patch in a place that accidentally got weeded over and over again. And I'm going to go ahead and mute Brian because he's talking to the folks at Dixie Lee. Are you going to mute yourself, Brian? Okay. Um, and so it got weeded, so I rescued a plant and put it in one of my containers. So this is my rescued plant. I think it's been in this container 2 years. These make little tiny, very sweet white strawberries. And it doesn't make the big runners that normal strawberries, the alpine strawberries don't make big runners. I had visions of it being, planted at the edge of my vegetable garden, and then I realized it doesn't like full sun. And so I've tried them a couple other places, and the place I had them would have worked if it didn't get weed eated regularly. But so I'm trying to figure out. I'm thinking about when this is done making its fruit, and the fruit is lovely. Um, where am I going to put it? So that is one of my adventures this year. Okay, this is my garlic that I planted very, very late this year. And the big weeds are in the bed in the path that's between the two beds. Um, and this year, the main weed that's in my garlic is actually a crop that I need to go out and harvest. Um, I don't know if you can see it well in this, but the green in here is all mosh or corn
Oh
salad.
my gosh, you're doing better than I did.
Yeah, there is some that's gone to seed, which is this right here is mosh that's going to seed, that plant there that you can see. And our weather was such that I had some sprout a second time. It needs a particular like cool, damp temperature and weather to sprout. And so I actually had it sprout 2 different times this year. And the rest of there's probably seed in my soil for it, but if it doesn't get that particular temperature and rainfall combo, it doesn't sprout. So it'll just hang out, the seed will just hang out in the soil all winter, and I'll get a crop of mosh next year. The other thing is when the new ones go to seed, I will spread that around. It's a really shallow rooted plant, and I don't think is going to interfere with my garlic growth very much. I'm willing to deal with that for a crop, and I need to go out in the next couple days, and I'll cut off those whole rosettes and put them in my salad, or make a salad of them. Let's see, this is my neglected garlic chives that I've done probably nothing with in the past 2 to 3 years. And I will be digging these up to move. We're going to let this area go back into an area that the folks that we have, my husband has come mow, take care of. I've been dealing with some health issues and just can't maintain as much area in my garden as I used to. So this is going to be moved to another patch that's more consolidated with everything else. And I am garlic. No, Egyptian walking onions are a very tough plant. Oh, these little parts at the top is where it's getting ready to do top sets. Garlic, no, why am I calling it garlic chives? Egyptian walking onions make little um, onion bulbs at the top of these stems. They don't make flowers. So you take the little onion sets it makes, and you replant those. They never do make big bulbs. That's just, how those work. Okay, this is a fig bush that I have in a container, and when it got, colder snaps this winter, I do drag it into this yard care garage here. So it is pretty leafed out. I did have some of it die on the top, probably because I didn't keep it watered enough. But this is the same variety as this fig that was in the ground. Now you can tell it hasn't been pruned much recently. It's got a lot of suckers that came up last year. But the only new growth I'm seeing is here, and I'm seeing some new growth over here. So it is sprouting out way later than the one that was in the pot and brought inside. And so you'll see that with plants. If you bring them in and protect them, a lot of times they'll be ahead of things that were left outside, or planted in ground for the winter. Okay, my pears set some fruit really nicely this year, and it doesn't look like it overset fruit. Sometimes when I look at it it's actually usually later than now. They set fruit a little bit early this year, and hopefully we don't have a hard frost coming up, because that would really damage the fruit that started on them. But the fruit seems to be nicely spaced. A lot of times you'll just have clusters of fruit, and you'll need to go through and thin that. What'll happen is it gives the same amount of energy to the whole cluster of fruit as it would to one or two, and so you end up with small fruit with a lot of seeds. And it's just not as enjoyable to use. Okay, this is a weed. It's a thistle. And I've got a small mattock, and I'm just going to take that, and they tend to have fibrous roots at the bottom. They don't usually have, these don't have a tap root. And so you can just go a little bit into the soil and cut it off where it's gone to that fibrous part, and it'll kill it.
I finally got a grandfather's weeding tool and
Oh, cool.
And I'm finding it works great on those thistles.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I'm glad because they pop up in the lawn all around. Yeah.
Yeah, the big thing I need to do is, even before I do that, you can see that some of these seed heads are getting ready to pop open. And I need to go out and cut those off.
Yeah.
And just put them in a trash bag. And, some people deal with them by honestly putting them in a bucket of water for a month or so and, letting them ferment. And I have done that some years to kill the seeds. You want to kill the seeds or get rid of them. This year, I'm getting rid of the seed. Once I get rid of the seed, I can compost the rest of the plant. because they generally don't come back from the roots. Okay, this is another invasive. This is a honeysuckle bush, a bush honeysuckle that the birds probably deposited a few years ago, and I have not successfully gotten rid of it. It is on the chopping block for this year. They will overtake wild areas and make it very difficult for the native plants to survive. Now we're going to switch over to a native plant. These are blueberries. They're all native to North America. And the ones I have, this one is actually a northern high bush, and I think this one, but the ones I've got more over on this side that are actually rabbit eye, which are native to this area. And so it looks like it's going to be a good blueberry year. Hard to see now, but there's lots of flowers that are in the process of dropping their petals and leaving the fruit, that's at the base of the petal. So I think it's going to be a good blueberry year. Hopefully the birds will not beat me to it like they did last year. Okay, now this is a picture that was actually taken last week at Savage Garden. I know probably a lot of you made it to the Dogwood Arts featured garden tour gardens at the Savage Garden in Fountain City. That's the more south part of Fountain City. Baxter Gardens in the north part of Fountain City, and Gaytop, which is near downtown. And so they were just beautiful gardens. So this is a picture of some native plants at Savage Garden. So we have this is the common name for this is squirrel corn. And then we've got some ginger behind it. And these are the leaves from the squirrel corn. It is related to like Dutchman's breeches and bleeding heart. And so it's what's called a spring ephemeral. It comes up in the spring, flowers, and then it'll die back to nothing in the summer. So you don't even know it's there. But there was a lot of squirrel corn. This is at Savage Garden. And this was actually when I was leaving Sunday after the garden tour was over, the featured garden was over. And this was on the edge of a path.
Aw.
And so they had about 1,000 people walked at, I mean, this was one along the main path coming in at the edge. So 1,000 people probably walked by this plant and no one stepped on it. And so I thought that was really sweet.
That's a miracle.
Yeah.
And that's the trillium.
That's a trillium. That's a yellow trillium. And they take a long time to go from seed to a new plant to a flower. I think it's something like 10 years. And so, they're a long-lived plant, but they're hard to get established just because it takes so long. And they are a spring ephemeral, so they come up, they do their thing, they flower, they do their reproductive thing, and then they die to nothing. And you don't even know they're there. So I thought that was just beautiful, that was still there at the end of the weekend. Okay, this is just a plant that I've been wanting to get established. When I moved to my property, I had no shade. And now I have shade and can bring in woodland plants. So this is a ground cover called green and gold. And it's a native ground cover and it blooms this time of year. And so I'm going to put it near another ground cover that I've got. And this is actually another one called partridge berry. I think partridge berry is the name. And so it's more of a mini micro shrub, a vining micro shrub type plant. Okay. This is another native plant that's in the area that I'm gonna put the green and gold. This is called pussy toes. I've talked about it before. And this is it just leafing out this spring. It'll almost carpet this area in these little, just slightly fuzzy leaves. And so it's a really pretty plant. It's very low to the ground. This is another native plant. As you plant plants in your garden, it's really good to maybe take some pictures and really look at your plants and think about them so that you learn. Birders call it the gist of a bird, but you can learn the gist of a plant. And it's where are you likely to see it? What does it look like at different stages of its life? How does it feel? Um, so as you learn the plants, and then you'll be able to recognize them when they come up in the spring, and you can avoid stepping on them or accidentally damaging the plants that you want. But until you learn that about a plant, it's hard to know what's what. And so this is one when it first comes up, it's very low to the ground. And this is actually a tall red flowering bee balm. And so it's just something that as a gardener, you'll want to think about as you put new plants in. It also is a good idea to put markers because you will forget, especially the spring ephemerals. This is not a spring ephemeral. This plant, it's a summer bloomer. But the spring ephemerals, you can forget you've put them there, and then you accidentally dig them up when you go to plant something else.
The same is true with perennials that die in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of
Yep.
times I leave their stems because native bees and stuff and pest and you know hibernate in them.
Yes.
So I leave the stems. And
Right.
so yeah, and so you're showing, for example, my milkweed, and actually behind it is the old stem from the
Hmm.
milkweed
So
that
like
I
back
left,
here.
so I knew where it was. Yeah.
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 Yes, that is useful. So you're accomplishing two things leaving those stems.
Mhm. Yeah, I know where it is.
Hmm.
Yep, and I'm helping the native bees. Yep.
Right. And what is it? Most of the native bees are ground nesters, but about 30% of them are cavity nesters. So they need a plant stem or something like that to nest in.
Mhm.
And you really want those.
And I saw my first monarch butterfly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay. So this one is something people ask about all the time. You might recognize the leaves as poison ivy, and you might think all of this is poison ivy. But actually, only these on this side, you can see they're sort of shiny with a little red tinge when they come out. And they're pretty regular. This over here, that actually looks like a small tree in its growth and has green bark on um, it's not really branches yet, it's twigs. It's box elder. And so it has a little bit different look than the poison ivy. And for a long, if you don't know, just do the leaves of three and let it be. But as you learn the gist of the plant, you'll be able to say, look at a plant and say, that's poison ivy and that's box elder. There's a little bit of difference in color, and the box elder is a real dull leaf, where the poison ivy tends to be shiny. But the older leaves of poison ivy aren't always shiny. So, it's important to learn the gist of it, just to know the plants. Box elder is, both of these are native plants and they do benefit wildlife.
And it's important this time of year when you see it coming
Hmm.
out to carefully get it out of your yard so you don't
Right.
deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah, the poison ivy, because what is it? Most animals don't have any problem with it, but we do. I am not very sensitive to it. And this is an area where after a rain, I will go and I will cover my arms in trash bags that are inside out that I've checked and made sure they don't have holes in it. And I will carefully pull it out. And I will turn, as I pull it, I will turn those trash bags um, back the right way to totally encase it so I'm never touching it. That's the best way I've found to deal with it after a rain. Um, if you have a big poison ivy, like going up a tree or a building, the best way to do is figure out where the roots are and cut it off and cut a section out so that it can't grow back together. And then let the upper part die for a while before you try to deal with it. You still need to be careful of the dead material. It'll still have the oils that'll give you a rash, but it's easier to pull off. And if it's up high in a tree, don't worry about pulling it off. Let it just rot over time. I actually have some growing up the side of my house that Lee is going to come over and help me with later. And I think what we'll do is we'll get all the poison ivy that's at ground level, and then we'll cut off that section that's growing up the house so it will die and let it decompose over time because it is on our siding. And I'm concerned if we try to pull it off, we're going to damage the siding. But if I leave it and let it rot, then it'll come off slowly, which will be fine.
Keep in mind, though, that's still toxic.
Right, it'll
As it's
still give you a
rotting.
rash. Yes.
The oils don't disappear.
The oils don't disappear. I've actually heard reports of herbarium specimens where they, press the leaves and, just archive them for sampling for identification purposes. On the order of 100-plus-year-old herbarium specimens have still given people rashes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, in China, they used
Mhm.
to paint their boxes that they wanted to hold precious things in. And so if a thief came, they were still getting a rash from it 700 years later.
Oh gosh,
Yeah,
that's wild.
that is totally wild. Yeah,
Yeah, totally wild.
yeah.
But how did you get it? I guess you would have to wear gloves or something to open it.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. Okay, and then this is one last one. This is our native columbine. And it's just a really pretty plant. And so that is the last of the
You want
slideshow.
to focus in on the flower, one of the orange flowers?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oops, wrong button.
yeah,
Okay, let me focus in. This is a nice flower here.
yeah,
These ones haven't totally opened up.
yeah.
Because when they totally open up, there's a yellow piece, a larger yellow piece, like a yellow bell hanging down. I don't think any of these are that open. No, none of them are yet.
My neighbor has a bed of colonized columbine.
Mhm.
Would do the natives colonize like that?
They will colonize.
Okay.
They don't always. I probably have too much else competing with it in this area. Can you
Oh,
split columbine like you would hostas? Um, Rob, if you have a patch where it's seeded in, Judy, I'm going to stop sharing. You should be able to dig up the smaller plants, but the mature columbine does like a taproot and it doesn't like to be disturbed, so it doesn't transplant well. The other thing that happens is if you have the really pretty columbine varieties, the fancy ones, and they cross with the native ones, the genetics of the native ones are dominant. And so over time, your patch will end up reverting to being more like the native one. If you have if you're a patch and you don't have any of the native growing nearby, you probably can keep that patch going, quite a long time. Um, if you want to move it, let it go to seed. Um, and then you can take the seed. It sort of makes little seed capsules that are like little cups that are facing up. And you can take those and scatter the seed around where you want it to be. It won't bloom. It might not bloom that next year, but it should bloom after that. A lot of perennials, their first year, they just make a little green rosette of leaves. And then it's that second year that they do flowers. So once you get that going, you can um, you can keep it where you're going to have flowers every year. Okay. Yeah, I like columbine. I did have an improved patch. Um, Lee, did you have something?
Oh, I was just going to say goodbye.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
off to my field trip.
Yes, have a good field trip. Tell everyone we said hi, and
Well,
we'll see you hopefully next week.
yep. Another
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Oh, I think Brian's saying bye, Lee. And so, um, what is it? Things that I'm doing right now. I actually got a really late start seeding my tomatoes and basil. So I have peppers already started, but I seeded my tomatoes and basil yesterday. They're a little bit later than I'd like. I generally want to plant with those a month to 6 week old plants. So I'm looking at being able to plant my tomatoes and basil toward the middle or end of March, which is, I mean, of May. I usually plant sometime around Mother's Day. I do wait longer than some folks do because I have had late frosts here. And that does happen in East Tennessee. Sometimes we do have a surprise late frost. I also might, if I see the varieties that I like for my early tomatoes, if I see them at a store, I probably will pick them up and just have those for early tomatoes. We do have a season where you can plant tomatoes until mid-July and still get fruit before fall. So you can actually do a succession of tomatoes. And so that's really nice. Peppers usually take longer. I see Brian's finger.
I have something to show for show and tell.
Oh, yes, you do. Yeah.
I I joined the Orchid Society, last year or so. I was helping sponsor them at UT when they were meeting there, and now they're out at Pellissippi State in Hardin Valley. And I just like the technical information and seeing the pretty photos and learning about orchids. But I found there's some that do fine as windowsill orchids, and one is called a Tolumnia. And I've shown it on the show before, and it's a very small orchid. You just
Oh,
mount it.
sweet.
Let me see if I can lift it up with a
Yeah.
camera. There we go. You just mount it in sphagnum.
Hmm.
Here we go. Well,
So
I
it's
need
just
an
attached
exterior
to that
camera.
branch.
There we are. Yeah, and it's just on
Oh,
grapevine.
cool.
And it bloomed. And I've been watching the blooms
Hmm.
develop for a few weeks now. And gosh, I'm incompetent at showing this with the
It is
camera.
hard to get things in the camera right. Come
Yeah.
down just a
Come
little bit more. Oh,
on.
there we go. Go
You
back
see
up a
it?
little bit. Go up a little bit so we can
Oh,
see.
that's right. I'm doing the delay send because I'm not watching on.
Yeah, go up just a little bit. There you are. Stop there. Wait, back down.
I'm trying to get to Zoom so I can see what I'm doing.
Yeah.
There we are. Yeah.
There. Now
So
you
it's
can see
got
what
these
you're
cute
doing.
little pansy-like faces. And when
Yeah, those are
they didn't
sweet.
really have that shape, and then they formed into it during the course of a day. And
Oh,
so they
cool.
could finally show this. And
Huh?
that's just tied on, and you use
Mm.
New Zealand sphagnum, long chain sphagnum for these things, not the sphagnum that you buy at the big box store that's all chopped. And so
Uh-huh.
I've got like five Tolumnia going. I've got three that are hybrids, which are easier to grow,
Oh, cool.
and then two that are species.
Hmm.
And I'm branching out into some other plants, orchids that do well in the windowsills. I haven't memorized their names.
Oh,
And
fun.
yesterday I ordered a fragrant Phalaenopsis. I didn't know
Oh, boy.
Phalaenopsis
I didn't
become
know
you can
that.
get fragrant ones, but
Yeah.
yeah. And it's from an orchid supplier. And if you read the descriptions, at least this one, is really good at identifying what will work for home culture and windowsill growth.
Oh, nice.
If
So how do
orchids
you
are your
water
thing,
it?
well, the Tolumnia that are mounted on the branch grow
Yeah.
high in trees in the tropical areas, and they're
Mhm.
used to being kind of drenched in the morning, first thing.
Okay.
And so that's what I do. And then the fowls,
So
like
so do you take it into the shower or something or?
I take it into the bathroom over the sink and then just spritz it real heavily.
Oh,
And
okay.
actually, I was told tap water will work with Solumnia, but I bought some lady slipper orchids, and
Hmm.
you're supposed to not use tap water for them. So I've been bringing my rain barrel water in and
Okay,
just
yeah.
dousing them. Now the Tulumnia as well as the lady slippers with the rainwater. And you just have to
Oh,
watch it.
nice.
You can get rotten material in a rain barrel if it stinks, you
Oh,
need to
okay.
flush it out.
Yeah.
But mine is good
Oh,
and
good.
okay. But on the topic of rain barrels, mine was a repurposed like mayonnaise or pickled barrel or
Uh-huh.
something like that.
Yeah.
And I have found that the way I had it connected has backed up water and rotted my soffit. And so
Oh,
I am trying to
no.
research other ways to do this. Since it's not a barrel sold as a rain barrel, it doesn't have
Right.
the kind of connections. And I reached out to Ryland this week, and I
Hmm.
also reached out to the City Office of Sustainability to see if somebody can consult with me about what to do. I love my rain
Yeah.
barrel. It's painted, it's decorated by some kids, but I've got to
Right.
find a better way to
So you
decorate.
don't have a way to stop water from going into it if when it's full.
I do. I've got a diverter, but
Huh.
maybe it's gotten backed up and I just need to
Yeah.
flush it out. But we're replacing the soffits and I don't want to
Right.
fix this again.
Right. Yeah, you don't. Yeah, because it's important with a rain barrel. You're almost pretty much any rain event is going to be more rain than a rain barrel can hold.
Right. And I like the diverter. It was a very
Mhm.
interesting idea. It's you cut a hole in the downspout uh
Yeah.
and you put in this thing that has like a little center cup and it
Mhm.
will take water from the center cup and put it in the barrel until the center cup gets backed up. And at that point all
Right.
the water diverts around it.
Right. And goes down the drain like it would normally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I have one of those, but then my rain barrel cracked and I've never replaced it. So I
Aw.
think I still have a diverter
Well,
somewhere in my stuff.
I'm gonna take out the diverter and poke around and see if it just got backed up.
Yeah.
And it might be backed up past the diverter too.
Right.
Uh,
Your gutter drain might be backed
I
up.
don't get much debris on my house, but a little
Yeah.
will do it.
Right. Or it might be backed up like at the diverter because
Yeah,
it wouldn't take much to clog that. Yeah, rain barrels, it's amazing how much rain, like just a quarter inch of rain well, on a roof, just how much water that is.
I have one downspout. I live in a tiny house. My tiny house is 20 feet by, I think, 18 feet. But even that, when I had my original setup, was too much to overwhelm, even a
Right.
slight rain event to overwhelm one rain barrel.
Yeah. Okay. See, I saw Tanya answered Judy's question and said you can split columbine like you do hostas. It's not exactly the same. Columbine generally grow from seed, where hostas do an expanding clump. So you can you can divide your columbine, but it's usually where they've seeded in, and you're removing the new plants, not splitting an existing plant that's hostas do, I would call it pupping, where they make babies, smaller plants around them. And so that's easy to split. Columbine really does not do that. So it has a different growth habit. So you can split it, but it's not exactly like the way you do hostas. Let's see. Susan Leetson said she had a rain barrel. I'm glad you found us. Yay!
Yeah.
Because I know Susan, you've been having a hard time finding the videos with the way things have changed in the past few months. Um,
And Judy says she thinks she did something similar with her false indigo.
yeah. Okay. Let me answer Susan's question. They had a rain barrel and it overflowed, and they finally took it off. Okay, that was just a comment. Um, I would say um, what I've seen is the false indigo tends to grow more like the hostas in an expanding clump. Um, the columbine does more of a seeding area. So they're a little different. With the columbine, you want to look for smaller plants to move. You don't want to dig up that big plant. Okay, with false indigo and hostas, you can dig the big plant and just, I mean, with hostas, you take garden forks, two garden forks, you put it into the clump and you pry them apart. False indigo is a little more tender than that. Um, and I've actually taken sections off the edge of my false indigo. And that seems to be a good way of getting new plants off of it and not disturb the mother plant. Um, but with hostas, you can literally dig the whole plant up, take those forks, divide it. If it's a big hosta, if it's a smaller one, you might just be able to take some trowels and split it that way. Um, but so that's sort of the gist of splitting those plants. Let's see. Um, oh, Judy says, I give her a lot to think about. Sometimes I think too much, but that's just me. Okay, is there anything else anyone wants us to talk about? Um, I know we're getting to the point where a lot of the spring blooming um, flowering plants are getting done. I think you could safely prune your forsythia now. Um, if it's a spring blooming shrub or tree and you want to prune it, the rule of thumb with those is to prune them after they've finished blooming. So, we're getting to that time with some of them. My lilac is still blooming, so I wouldn't want to prune it yet. But I am going to do some significant pruning on it once the blooms have faded. The rule of thumb is to never take more than a third of the plant off, but you can always take anything that's dead or significantly damaged.
We
So,
had to move a big Fothergilla,
mm,
and we had to move it because it's in the way. It was going to get damaged when a stump was removed. And so I'm on water patrol, but so far that plant, the bush, is doing okay. We dug way out around it, like 12 inches
mhm,
out from the stem, uh,
yeah,
big root ball. But it's not an ideal time to be moving shrub
right.
with the heat coming on.
Hmm. Okay, Susan, does anyone know how to prune a lovely old camellia that was hurt by the last two freezes? Um, I think we're safe to do the pruning on it now. The first thing you do is anything that's dead or significantly damaged, take that out, cut that out. You can use, for smaller stuff, you can use smaller branches and twigs, you can use a hand pruner. For things that are a little bit larger, you can use a lopper. For things that are bigger than that, you probably need to use some sort of saw. Um, I like a Japanese style saw, hand saw that cuts on the pull so that you have a lot of control over that. On a camellia, you might not have wood that's that big, but if it's an older one, you might have. So take out the dead and damaged, then look at it. And if there are branches that are crossing and rubbing, one of those branches needs to go. And so what you look at is which one needs to stay for the structure of the plant, of the shrub. And so you go through, and so you don't want crossing branches. And I know on our website, the Knox County Master Gardener YouTube channel, in the Prune Like a Pro section, there's a big long playlist. There's pretty definitely some, what am I trying to say? Some videos on pruning camellias. And so that'll give you a lot of instruction. And there's generally even an info sheet related to them that gives you a little more information. So that's where I would go to look. But dead, damaged, crossing, oh gosh, I have a sheet somewhere I don't think I have a copy of it right here. Um, but let me see if I can find it and I will. share it in the group. And it is a really good resource about, you know what, it's going to be linked in the Prune Like a Pro series.
And I posted that link.
Yeah, good. Because that'll really show you what's going on. Let's see. What about the top of it? It is growing taller and skinnier in the last 2 years. Okay, so generally with shrubs that grow like camellias, it's probably growing as a multi-stemmed shrub. You take out a third of you take out the oldest third, as far down in the shrub as you can get. And that'll encourage it to grow new growth from the bottom. So, if you can have some, well, we won't be at I know Susan generally comes to the Ebenezer Farmers Market. We won't be there till the third um, Tuesday in May now. So that's a while to wait. But you can send your photos into it's our Ask a Master Gardener email, excuse me, which is the easiest place to send photos, is KCMG, and I'll type it in here because I know it, kcmgamg@gmail.com, not .zom, which is what I typed. And this is our Ask a Master Gardener email. And you can send a question in there with the photos, and one of our volunteers will get back to you. And they should be able to give you, the specifics on what your tree looks like. Yeah, if it's so big you need a ladder, um, excuse me, you might need to get some help with the pruning. Because we don't want anyone to get hurt pruning. And being up on a tree I wouldn't hesitate to be up on a ladder with a pruner, but I would hesitate to be up on a ladder with a saw, because that is pretty dangerous, and I might reserve that for a professional. I will admit I've done it, but I know it's not a good idea. And also, if you're doing any pruning, be sure to wear safety glasses,
Yeah.
Because even wearing glasses, I learned the hard way that I should wear safety glasses because I had a branch flip my glasses off when I was pruning. And my vision is such that I cannot function without my glasses. And I literally telephoned my husband, who was in the house, and said, "Help, I can't find my glasses." So, when I do that kind of pruning again, I will wear some safety glasses that hug my face better and keep that from happening.
I've
But
got a seasonal tip
yeah.
related to pruning. My neighbor was pulling off invasive vines off our wax
Mhm.
myrtles, and they're pretty dense shrubs. You can't really
Yeah.
see through them. And the invasive vine released, and it kind of whiplashed the branch of the wax myrtle.
Mhm.
And there was a robin nesting there, and her eggs fell on the ground. Uh, you know, inspect if you're about to do something like that, working with
Yes,
shrubs, peer through, try to get a sense of whether there might be a nest there.
that's true.
Right now, I've got a robin nesting on one of my rafters on my second story
Mhm.
deck. They're out there. Uh, and
Yes.
it's lovely to have that companion, but I
Mhm.
certainly don't want anything to happen to her.
Right. Yeah, the birds are very busy nesting right now. Yeah. So before you prune, check your plant for nests and active nests, and you can tell the difference. An old nest is sort of starting to fall apart. Um, I know it's been an active year and will be looks like it's going to be a great summer. Though summer is coming in hot and heavy.
Yeah.
It looks like. When I've looked at the weather forecast, let me go look at that.
Getting some rain next week, and we need the rain.
We definitely need.
You might be frozen, Miss Amy. I think you're still frozen here for me. Let me look on the Zoom and see what's happening there. Yeah, frozen. Well, guys, it's 9:59. Amy may come back alive if we're fortunate. But Judy, thank you. Susan, all of y'all for joining us today. And if you're watching later, we appreciate you tuning in and seeing the garden show and posting your comments. Yeah, Amy's rebooting. She may join us, but in fact, she's going to have to end the show. It's hard to set up the technology, and we're lucky that Amy has mastered it. She's rebooting. Yes, I'm happy to help, Susan, and it's always a pleasure to be on the show. I'm going to say farewell and end my role on the Zoom, and Amy will end the show when she can.